Prophets, the Prophets included, did certain acts that were makruh. When a Prophet of Allah subhanahu does an act that's makruh, when the Prophet does an act that's makruh, see, for him it's not makruh. For him it was compulsory to do it. For us it may well be makruh. Like the Prophet stood, on occasions he urinated standing up. What's the rule of urinating standing up? No, not haram. Makruh. It's makruh. It's not haram. It's not haram. Better not to do. But if a person does do it, it doesn't. It's not haram. As long as he stops the impurity from flowing, it would not be considered haram. The Prophet did, and that's why we can't say it's haram. Anything that the Prophet did could not be haram for this ummah. Anything the Prophet did could not be haram. Why then is he doing an act that the jurists would say is makruh? To show us that it's not haram. To show us that it's not haram. Any act that the Prophet did could not be makruh. And there are many cases where the jurists say that the Prophet did this bayan al-jawaz, to show it's permissible, to show it's not haram.
So would that mean in the case where if the toilet seat was urinated all over the place, then it's recommended to stand up and urinate?
Yeah, in a case like that.
So
yeah.
Your discretion.
Yeah. The third aspect of prophecy, conveying to the message, tabligh. The messengers must inform us of all revelation in regards to the sacred law that they receive, and must not conceal any part of it. They cannot conceal any part of what they are required to deliver. If they had been able to conceal the message that they brought, this would have caused doubt in the credibility of their messengership and their message. It would mean that they're untrustworthy and possible liars. This is impossible in their right. So no prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever concealed, what they were required to give. No prophet ever concealed any part of revelation. The moment they were required to give it, they gave it. If at any point they would have concealed revelation, the accusation could have been levelled. The accusation could have been levelled against them, that they were liars, they withheld revelation. And there's now then an issue about trust in revelation itself. Can we trust them in other aspects? How do we then know that they've given everything? And so on. It starts now to open problems with revelation itself. So we say every single aspect of what they were required to give, they gave. They did not hold back on anything. Intelligence, al-fatan. Prophets are blessed by God with superior intellects that enable them to have a comprehensive understanding of their message and to support it with evidences. It allows the prophet to memorize and deliver the message as it was revealed to him, and to guide and advise his nation. Prophets require this superior intellect to be able to disprove the arguments and lies of those in opposition to their message. Now, why must prophets have supreme intellectual prowess, intellectual power? Why must they have that? So that no unbeliever could come and disprove their claim. Now, no unbeliever could stand in front of them. Like now, for example, you're standing with someone who's not a Muslim, and he's asking for your belief in God. Why do you believe that there's one God? Why do you believe that he's all powerful? Maybe you'll be able to convince him, maybe you won't be able to convince him. You saw from Aqida all of his rational proofs. Why? To be able to stand there and say that this is why you believe in this. But the prophets of God, you say, that required now a higher level. It's not just, perhaps they'd be able to convince, perhaps they wouldn't. If a prophet could not convince in his arguments, if a prophet could not be convincing his arguments, and he's overpowered in his arguments, so all credibility has now been lost to that message. There's nothing left of that message after that. And when you stand in front of a non-Muslim and ask him, and some atheist, some Christian comes and disproves your arguments, what does that now do? Anybody listening is like, no, there's nothing to that. There's nothing to it. It's a natural human reaction. Even like one group of Muslims, another group of Muslims, they get into an argument and debate. Who will people go with? The one who comes out with the better arguments. That's the nature of human beings. You'll go with the stronger arguments. Therefore, prophets had to have the most powerful arguments. Therefore, prophets must have had the most powerful arguments, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ عَلَى قَوْمٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about, so this is our proof that we gave to Ibrahim to debate with his people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the ability to overcome any arguments that was levelled, so that nobody can start casting doubt upon the message itself. Prime example of that is Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. Example is Namrud. Ibrahim alayhi salam says, God brings a son. Okay, Namrud says first to Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ana uhyi wa umit. I cause life and death. I cause life and death. The Mufassirin then mention a story that happens at that point with Ibrahim alayhi salam. Namrud now then calls for a cauldron of boiling oil to be brought. It's brought and it's heated to the point where the oil is boiling. 2 prisoners are then brought. Namrud then orders, throw one of them in. One of them's thrown in, he dies, instantly dies. Namrud then says, release the other one. He said, I gave him life, I caused him death. What's Ibrahim alayhi salam said? If you are truly God, bring back the one who you killed, bring him back to life. The one that you killed, bring him back to life. Then the Quran comes and brings another argument that he used. If you are truly God, bring the sun from the other direction, from the opposite direction. If you're truly God, then those things that normal human beings or human beings don't have power over, do that. He couldn't do it. That's the proof that Ibrahim was given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to completely obliterate the arguments of Namrud. All prophets had that power of intellect such that they were able to overcome the arguments of anybody who stood against them. Then the opposites, we've already mentioned the opposites. We said the opposite of the first one, truthfulness, said it's impossible for prophets to lie. Ibrahim did not lie, although the Prophet said he lied on 3 occasions. We say that's figurative. That's figurative. When he said, I am sick, and he said, I am sick of your practices. When he said, she's my sister in faith, she's my sister in humanity. When he said the big one did it, my hand, my thumb did it, my hand did it, not referring to the idol. All of this is what's known as Tawriyah. Tawriyah is giving a false impression. No. Ibrahim never lied. No prophet could ever lie. So he said the opposite of all of these are impossible. The opposite of truthfulness is lying. It was impossible for the prophets to lie. Likewise, it's impossible for them to betray the trust, which included sinning. Impossible for them to withhold their message. Whatever they were required to give, they gave out. It's impossible for them to be simple-minded, a low intellect. These are all attributes that do not befit a prophet and would diminish the strength of their mission to call towards God. Prophets cannot possess attributes that will make them look deficient in the eyes of people. Either they cannot be deaf, blind, dumb, physically disabled, or impaired in any way. Anything that would act as a barrier between people coming to that prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not create a prophet with that there. No barrier. Even they'll say, just comes here. Yeah. Even though we say that prophets can be affected by all things human beings can be affected by, because of their human nature. Because of their human nature. So can they be sick? Yes, they can. Yes, they can be affected by sickness. But not a sickness that will become a barrier. Can a prophet suffer leprosy? I said no. Can a prophet become insane? No. No. These type of sicknesses will become barriers now between people coming to the prophet and the prophet being able to give the message. Any questions? Possible, jaiz.